Yeah, boy, we're live on Blab. I am, and it's July 5th and episode 139, and this is the Fantasy Football Auctioneer podcast. The Fantasy Football Auctioneer podcast is the official podcast of thefantasyfootballauction.com, the internet's only website dedicated to fantasy football auctions. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram. We are at Fantasy Auction, or you can like us on Facebook. We are facebook.com/Fantasy Football Auctioneer. We've got a great show for you tonight. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit of NFL news. We're going to talk some player rankings and some tiers, and we're even going to announce the winner of the Scott Fish Bowl contest. Now, and here's where I normally say, but of course, our experts are always here. But of course, the last few weeks, we haven't had the big guy on, Mr. Blistr. He's away on location. He might tell you he's scouting for FFPC venues, and maybe someday we can get down there and do a live auction. I'm sure he's spending some time in a couple of different venues doing some sportsbook betting. But he is in Vegas, and I wouldn't be surprised. I just have a sneaking suspicion that he's going to click the link on Twitter and pop in, like walking down the strip or something. I'm just going to throw that out there, so maybe we might get a surprise visit for him. But anyways, we do have our other analyst with us tonight. He's been Slim. I want to know if you know this this news item. He's been last seen soaking wet while sneaking out of the passenger seat of a car that was found in a pond in Florida. Slim, how's Denard? Do you know the news item?
I know what you're talking about. Okay, I actually, when I first saw it, I thought immediately of the Seinfeld episode where Jerry's parents' neighbor takes the Cadillac for a spin and it ends up in the swamp. Yes,
I think that one, and I also think of The Office when they're following the GPS.
Oh, yeah.
I think that one too. That was, but I mean, I thought this Denard Robinson news is kind of crazy. They're actually sinking in a swamp.
Yeah, like you said, that's something only from a sitcom, really.
Yeah.
Poor Denard, and his shoes probably weren't tied. So he probably had a hell of a time getting out.
Well, I like that the cops woke them up, and then he fell back asleep, and then they woke him up again, and they were reluctant to get out of the car. It said in the news article, anyways, that and then the cops had to tell him, like, your car's sinking in a swamp.
you hate the cops when you don't want to get out of the car. You're just like, I can picture them sitting. Well, car's sinking in the swamp. Well, we got to get out, talk to the cops. I don't know. Maybe we should just stay in the car.
maybe that's the best idea you can do. Garrett Blount just
Donald Trump will have a tweet about this, man.
Oh yeah. Well, anyways, I thought it might be interesting. I wasn't sure if you knew the news item or not, so you'd be like, "What the hell was that about?" I thought that'd be good. So anyway, hopefully we'll get Blistr back next week, and we can have all three of us back on. Today we're going to talk a little bit about, like I say, some news and some rankings, and we'll see where we get spun off. And Slim and I tried to make a pact here that we're going to be off the air in less than an hour, so we'll see how that goes. I know you right now live, you're not listening to us, but we've been recording week in and week out on blab.im. You can come on live, jump the webcam right on and ask us questions live. There's also a live chat room there as well. And you can actually go back and see the replays on Blab as well. We've been putting the YouTube video up on YouTube, or you can check it out on the website. The podcast, that is, on thefantasyfootballauction.com/podcast. Anyway, Slim, let's get this thing rolling so we can stay in under an hour. If you guys are ready, then I'm ready. Let's cock the hammer. It's time for action. All right. I was going to do fantasy football news buy or sell, Slim, but that's not even buy or sell. Let's just talk.
Sure.
All right. Sound good? Okay. So the first one I saw here was from the MiamiDolphins.com. Running back Jay Ajayi will enter the Dolphins training camp as the clear favorite to replace Lamar Miller as the starter after flashing intriguing potential in his 9 appearances as a rookie. So Adam Gase thinks that, he was really impressed with his shiftiness to go along with his physical running style. Slim, are you liking Ajayi this year?
I do not mind him.
I thought you were going to say, I do not like him. which would have been good. I would love that.
No, to me, I don't know. I have a hard time getting a read on this situation. I mean, I'm not going to actively pursue him in drafts, but I think what we'll see is, at least kind of what I've seen in some mocks that I've done so far, there seemed to be this clump of running backs kind of in that late RB2 range. So kind of you get around 20, anywhere from 20, 25, even down to 30 somewhat. They're kind of all lumped together, and now it's picking who's left in that pile and maybe how you rank those guys. So I think a lot's going to come down to your preference on that, how much you trust his knee, how much you trust his actual usage. For me, I just think there's guys in that area, and we'll probably get into this later as we start kind of going through rankings and trying to tier some guys. There's guys that are kind of being drafted in his area that I like much more. I'll use Ryan Matthews as an example. I mean, I just like his amount of volume. So if I have to pick between those two, I'm going to take Ryan Matthews every time. I know he's got injury issues as well, but I just think there's nothing else really in Philly right now, and Ryan Matthews is going to get a lot of touches, where I think the Dolphins offense would like Ajayi to get that many touches. I just don't know if he's going to be capable of actually doing that. So until I see it, I can't really believe it yet.
Well, and just I guess while we're talking, we might as well just go into some of the AAVs we have on them. So right now we have an average auction value on Ajayi at $13. That puts him around Matt Jones as far as AAV, not as our rankings. Matt Jones, Frank Gore, Gio Bernard. Who else do we see in there? Maybe Jonathan Stewart. Some of those that are in that $13 to $15 range. Do you think that that's a fair grouping for Ajayi?
Well, I like Gio Bernard more. I mean, but to me, he's undervalued all the time. Gio Bernard, for some reason, I don't get it, but he is. After that, though, I'm not real. Wow. But even if you look, and this is one thing, I did this, I don't know, maybe a week ago, because I saw people on Twitter talking about it. I think if you go to standard, he was in PPR, I think he was, say, RB17. If you go to standard, he dropped to like RB19 or 20, which everybody thinks he's just this PPR back, but really he's still a mid-level RB2 in standard as well, which most people just overlook. They just assume all he does is catch passes, but that's for another pod, I guess.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like him more. I'm not really high on Jonathan Stewart so much. I'm really worried that he's going to revert back to the heavy injury history that we saw earlier in his career. I know in the last couple seasons he hasn't done that, but to me, they're pretty similar. Who else did you say? I can't even remember.
Well, just to throw that out there, I thought I'm going to look it up and pull up the NFL data while I'm at it. Gio Bernard had 154 carries last year, which puts him, if I rank this.
Yeah, we all got to remember, Jeremy Hill sucked.
Yeah, so, RB 28 as far as rush attempts go.
Yeah, so like, I mean, I just don't think Jeremy Hill's going to all of a sudden get that much better. We've kind of seen what he is. Not to say he's terrible, but to me he's kind of touch reliant. And Bernard is always going to have a decent role in that offense. But wow, are we ever far away from Ajayi? I don't know. Yeah,
well, we did. That's all right though. I don't mind it because it kind of flows into like what we were saying about talking about tiers and rankings and that type of thing. So, yeah, I think he's a tricky one too. Are you worried about Kenyon Drake at all in this?
Well, a little bit. I mean, we don't know anything about Kenyon Drake yet. We haven't seen him used. I don't know what they're going to try and do with him. Maybe he looks really good out there. And, I mean, I'll be honest, I wasn't super high on him coming out. But that's not to say that he can't actually carve out some type of role in this offense, for sure. And, I mean, I just think with Ajayi, when you look at the group that he's going to be typically drafted around, there is going to be less risky, maybe. I don't want to say more upside. I think that Jai does have some upside, but I think there's other guys that have as much upside, maybe a little bit more, but don't come with quite as much of a risk. For example, Gio Bernard. To me, he's the prime example. If he's going right around a Jai, I will take Gio Bernard 1,000 times over a Jai.
All right. So there you go. So there's Jai talk. Let's move into, I guess, what's probably been the biggest news talk of the last week or so, Slim. It's the Colts signing Andrew Luck through to 2021. So the Indianapolis Colts have stuck to the word and secured franchise quarterback Andrew Luck to a long-term future with the organization before the start of the 2016 season. They announced on Wednesday the 29th that the extension will go through to 2021, and it's for, well, we'll just say sick money. It makes him the highest paid player in the NFL based on guaranteed salary. So what, if anything, Slim, does the Andrew Luck signing mean to you as far as fantasy for 2016?
I'll be honest, it doesn't really mean anything to me this year. I mean, Luck wasn't going anywhere. I never thought he was. Even in dynasty leagues, I never thought he would ever go anywhere. So it doesn't really do anything to me, to be honest.
All right. So
does it do anything for you?
No,
as far as changing where you draft him,
and it doesn't. It doesn't change how I draft him, and it doesn't change how I draft guys around him. And yeah, I think you're right. He wasn't going anywhere anyway. So just.
I mean, I don't think he's going to play worse. Like some people, you get this big money, and I kind of laugh at that theory sometimes. Where I just think of you or I or a regular Joe. If you get a raise at your job, do you all of a sudden just say, "Well, I'm not trying anymore"?
Yeah.
No.
Well,
that's not how people usually work.
He's a competitor.
Well, yeah. I mean,
he seems to be a pretty fierce competitor. I don't think he's gonna be like, "Oh, Jay, I got a payday. I'm gonna Deshaun Jackson this or something." Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right. So, didn't change much. Okay. So this one I thought was interesting, Slim. The Giants defensive coordinator mistook Sterling Shepard for Odell Beckham. So this was last week on Wednesday, according to Big Blue View. The comparisons between Sterling Shepard and Odell Beckham aren't just unrelated compliment from evaluators. Giants defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo flat out mistook Sterling Shepard for Odell Beckham Jr. So this is the quote from the defensive coordinator. Because I'll tell you, I was looking at the tape the other day, and we had a receiver doing some things against us, and I told the staff we have to do a better job there against Odell. And then I looked again, and it wasn't Odell. It was actually Shepard. So, Slim, is this coach speak? Were you high on Shepard anyways, and this just solidifies it? Does this mean anything to you?
I think maybe it's a little more than coach speak. I'm sure he's looked good. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure he's been getting a lot of extra reps with guys like Victor Cruz not there, which that's a good thing for him. I mean, was I high on him? No. I'm typically not high on any rookie receivers. I think all this stuff is going to do is serve to boost his value, his auction value, which can be a good thing for you if you had not really any intention of drafting him. So if it was me, personally, like I said, I don't target rookie wide receivers very often. There's always to me veterans that can be had for the same price or less that are going to outproduce those guys. I would be retweeting this news and posting it to all the people in my league and talking about this because I want him to go for $15 at my draft, because that means that somebody like Willie Snead or Marvin Jones or, well, I was going to say Tyler Lockett, but that's not going to happen anymore anyway. We'll talk about that probably next. Those guys will all go for less than Sterling Shepard, which to me is good because I would rather have those guys and they will become at much cheaper cost.
So I'm just looking. Oh, that's the wrong thing. As far as our rankings go, we have him ranked way down he would be our wide receiver 49. We all have him just inside the top 50. And I just wanted to take a look at composite at the expert consensus rankings here for Shepherd and see where. And right now, the majority, I guess the expert ranking, the consensus ranking is at wide receiver 43. So, I mean, I think that's probably pretty standard. I love the idea of retweeting that and really talking them up. I love the idea, Slim, and you bring this up last year too, of starting your auction draft like 2-3 weeks ahead of time, right? By doing stuff like that, really talking up guys that you're not interested in and getting in guys' heads early.
Especially when you play in a home league, I think, and we can both attest to this because we play in the same home league and we've been in it for years now. I think a lot of people understand tendencies of a lot of the owners they played with for a while. And I know for us, we actually kind of rank players and go on and kind of make our thoughts known, where everybody in our home leagues and other people, I guess, that we play against could have access to that information. So I think sometimes we're at a bit of a disadvantage to other people just because of that. So, I mean, for us, but for anybody, I think if you can create, doubt in people's minds of what you're actually thinking, then that's a good thing. Maybe I do this all the time, except this year I do it with somebody that I actually like. So just when everyone thinks that I'm full of shit and they know that I'm just trying to throw smoke screens out, now this time I don't. So to me, that's kind of the fun of especially live auction drafting and leagues that you do over and over and over. You can kind of play these types of games, and it does make it a little bit more challenging and fun year round, even because, like you said, you can start it kind of whenever you want. You kind of do it as the NFL season rolls around.
Well, I thought it interesting too, as we're live here on Blab, one of our league mates had jumped on, and
there he is.
As soon as we started talking about this, he jumped off. So he didn't really hear much of that talk. Just that sometimes you like to talk guys up early. I was waiting because he is just the guy that would give you the gears for that. So I was waiting for him to actually want to jump on and refute that or agree with that or whatever. But then he left. So it's good you got to talk about it and he wasn't around. So it was good.
I don't think it's any secret I do those kinds of things.
Yeah. No, that's true. So the last bit of news here that I want to talk to is another re-signing. The Seahawks have re-signed Doug Baldwin to a 4-year extension. So they signed him to the new extension that is somewhere around $11 million per year. This according to Adam Schefter. So first thing, Slim, do you like Doug Baldwin, and does the re-signing do anything for you there?
Well, I think in this case it might do something. I think it shows that the team believes in Doug Baldwin. I like him. I have him as a low-end wide receiver 2, which, I mean, I think he could outproduce that as well. I don't know if we'll see the same clip that he was performing at last year, but, I mean, I'll take a wide receiver 2 out of that. I think you'll be able to get him at a decent price as well, because I think a lot of people think that he can't repeat what he did last year. So people are overlooking him, and I guess we might as well just get into it. I think we'll see this Tyler Lockett hype might push his price down as well, and it might push some of his production down as well too. But I really think that the Seahawks offense is going to be something a little bit different than what we're used to seeing in the last few years with no Marshawn Lynch there now. Second half of the season, they kind of let Russell Wilson go do his thing, and they were pretty successful at it, and it led to a pretty strong fantasy season from Wilson as well. I don't see why they would deviate from that too much. So, you got this second-year receiver in Lockett. Doug Baldwin kind of emerged. Jimmy Graham is coming back. We don't know exactly what that's going to mean. They've added some more weapons to the backfield and some decent athletic weapons here. So I think we could see this offense kind of become more of a passing offense than we're used to. So yeah, I do like Doug Baldwin.
All right. Well, let's just take a look then at the group of receivers that are sitting around Dougie B right now. So you got just in that 20, like right now, AAV, we have Doug Baldwin at $25. And so that puts them in kind of the same wheelhouse as Golden Tate, Dante Moncrief, Calvin Benjamin, Randall Cobb, maybe Jarvis Landry, Julian Edelman, but in that range. And we're looking at what we would call our consensus ranks at wide receiver 19 through to 25. Would you say that's a fair grouping?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, all I heard was Golden Tate, really. I was looking at some stuff there, trying to pull them up, but I can't remember the other names that you said.
Golden Tate, Moncrief, Benjamin, Cobb, Jarvis Landry, Edelman are all kind of in that $25 to $28 AAV range.
Yeah, I think there's some safer guys. I don't want to use the word safer. I mean, I don't think that Baldwin is necessarily an unsafe player.
Higher floor, maybe?
Yeah, I guess. Like, I look at somebody like Randall Cobb, and I just think he's got a higher floor. It might be the exact words. He might not have as high a ceiling.
Right.
Because I do feel like we saw Doug Baldwin explode last year. Literally, nobody saw that coming.
Right.
And I think Randall Cobb has just been a fairly consistent, other than one blip year where he really overshot kind of what his norm has been up to this point. I mean, he's only broke 1,000 yards receiving once in his career. So I think Cobb is pretty safe. I think if you want to go for the home run, and maybe this is going to be your wide receiver 3, I really like a guy like Doug Baldwin.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that tier is really going to slot into that auction horseshoe that we've talked about before, and I'm sure we'll talk about a ton as we move through July here and August. But I think this tier's at where everyone's kind of lumped together in that same dollar value. You're going to see a couple guys go for over 30 if we were drafting today, and you're going to get a couple guys in those low 20s. And I think I'd take any one of those guys probably for $21 if it falls to it.
Well, and I think you're right in a sense, like as a horseshoe. To me, this tier is going to be really important because either you're going to load up on running backs, and this might be your wide receiver 1 might come from this tier.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, yeah.
This could end up being your wide receiver 3, and you might be trying to, wait on a value, and now all of a sudden there's a couple guys left here, and maybe, you want Tate, Doug Baldwin, but you don't want Eric Decker. And those are kind of the 3 guys left that maybe you got to overspend to get that guy now. And I don't know. I just think this tier is going to be pretty important as far as how the dominoes fall later in drafts. I think a smart thing to do this year would be to start nominating guys out of these types of tiers pretty early. If you know there's a certain guy that you want, and you've seen him go, maybe you're higher on him than most, and you think he's a value, or you've seen him going lower than what you think he should be going for, then I think these are the kinds of nominations that make people uncomfortable, the other owners uncomfortable in your draft room when you throw a guy like this out at the start of the draft, because they're not expecting.
Yeah, they don't know where to go, right?
The lead stud, they don't know. If the bidding gets up to $25, they kind of go, do I spend that right now? Does that mean it takes me out of the running for Levy and Bell here, who's going to come in the next 3 players? Like, it makes people panic a little bit, which is always a good thing when you're drafting. If you can make them uncomfortable and unsure what to do, that's going to keep bids from coming off the board, and it's probably going to lead to a value for you. So if you're, like I said, if you're confident and you've done your homework and there's certain guys that you like, I don't think there's anything wrong with nominating those guys, especially before a whole bunch of all the big name studs have gone, because people are going to hold on tight to their money at this point in the draft still, because they want to get some of these studs, and they're not sure what to spend on some of these lower level guys potentially.
Right. Yeah, and I mean that's a good point, especially right on, like if your first nomination out of this tier is someone you want, you might be able to just sneak one out of there. Hey?
Say I'm with the first nomination in the whole draft, and I just throw Randall Cobb's name out there. Most other owners are going to say, "Oh well, Jarvis Landry's still there, Calvin Benjamin, Golden Tate."
Yeah, and I want.
There's no point in me
Thomas
nominating. I'm just going to save my money for Julio.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So if you only get 2 owners bidding, then great. Maybe you get them for 15-20% less than what you thought you would get them for.
Right.
That's awesome.
And that early in the draft, being able to save $2 or $3, let's say, can really help out later on. I mean, later on in the draft, if you save $1 or $2, lots of guys are ending up with a handful of dollars left in their bank anyways. But at this point, then hey, I've saved money on my wide receiver 2 or whatever you want to call them. That gives me a little bit more leverage very early in the draft to 10% up a guy, right?
Sure. That's right. If there's a guy you really want, you really want Julio. Yeah, you got a couple extra bucks to play with to go get your guy, which I am a proponent of. I think if you really want a guy and you believe he's going to produce or outproduce where he's being drafted, to me, the values that you set or see are the ones that we give as auction values. Those are just rules of thumb to keep you. It's like going to buy a car. I mean, you want to know the rough market value on that car, but at the end of the day, if you really want the car, you might want to spend more, and that's okay if you really want it. I mean, we lose sight of this sometimes, and especially I think when we start playing Dynasty and things. This is a game for fun. I mean, it is nothing more fun than winning with a team of players that you like or that you have high predictions for, and they live up to those expectations. To me, we forget that a lot of the time, that we're doing that. We get too worried about, I'm going to overspend. I'm going to lose on this. I'm going to look like an idiot. No, you're not. And so what? It's for fun. We all mess up. But if you have a good reasons for doing it, then you're justified in doing so.
Right. I was also thinking, looking at this tier, I don't mind if I have wide receiver 1 and 2 coming out of this slot, right? Spending $50 on wide receiver 1 and 2, and you end up with Golden Tate, Doug Baldwin. I mean, that's not the end of the world, because that probably means you're doing something at running back, or you went Gronk, or right?
I agree. I mean, this is going to be the dilemma a lot of people face this year. Is wide receiver is deep. I mean, I'll go even down to who we have. Emmanuel Sanders is our wide receiver 28. There is a chance he could be a low-end wide receiver 1.
Right.
So, I mean, you could be getting somebody that finishes a wide receiver 1. Michael Floyd could, if he breaks out, finish as a low-end wide receiver 1. Could. I mean, are the percent chances smaller? Yeah, maybe. But, I mean, I don't think in years past this potential necessarily existed to the extent it does now. I mean, I'll look at our rankings. We have Larry Fitzgerald ranked as our wide receiver 34. That's a guy that could finish as a low-end wide receiver 1 again. So, to me, there's lots of guys here. So what are you going to do with all these other positions? And it's going to be something that I think people are going to have to wrestle with a little bit in the coming months, trying to develop a strategy that they feel comfortable with. Right.
And again, in that tier, if we look at guys in that tier, I guess we're just moving into tiers now. Eric Decker, Jordan Matthews, Emmanuel Sanders, Michael Floyd, Devontae Parker are in the $20 to $21 AAV. If let's say you had, 4 of those 5 guys as your receivers, you spent $80 on your receivers, and you could run one of them as a flex. There you go.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you have a really strong receiving core. When you first start and you go, okay, Eric Decker's my wide receiver 1, you're like, yeah, okay. But now all of a sudden you're wide receiver 2 and you're wide receiver 3 and you're flexing Devontae Parker.
Yeah.
Wide receiver's looking pretty sexy all of a sudden.
Well, especially if you have, Le'Veon Bell and Adrian Peterson or something.
Right.
Running backs. Like, it's going to be, a pretty strong weekly performer, I think.
Right.
And especially if you can hit on one of these guys that is going to really outperform his AAV. So,
right.
And there's going to be some of them. For sure there will be. Whether it's, and I mean, I guess we could get into some of these later guys like Michael Crabtree. To me, huge steal this year, value right now. Larry Fitzgerald still is. Michael Floyd honestly intrigues me.
Well, I think even Emmanuel Sanders, if you can get him for under $20, I mean, his quarterback situation can't be worse than it was last year. It just can't be.
And this is the thing. That's why did he drop? I mean, yeah, I think everybody assumed, well, the quarterback situation's a mess. Well, guess what, man? Peyton Manning sucked last year too. So, and he was much more
Emmanuel
efficient.
Sanders, wide receiver 19. And he had some offers in there, right? But, I mean, he was still scoring 16, 15, 26, 13, 20, and that's with Peyton Manning, who could barely throw it past the line of scrimmage.
That's right. I mean, exactly. So I think, Alan Hearns even down.
Right.
To me, he is more of a safer player, not to say a higher upside player, but a safer receiver, we'll say, than, say, Allen Robinson. And what I mean by that is Allen Robinson is phenomenal. Don't get me wrong. But a good chunk of his points came in garbage time. Well,
yes.
If the defense is improved drastically, like we kind of all think it is on the verge of doing, is there going to be those garbage time opportunities this year? And believe me, I still think Allen Robinson is going to be a great fantasy option. It's just, what if he loses a good chunk of that because Blake Bortles isn't just slinging the ball around like a crazed lunatic for a whole second half, and now he's actually got to, manage the game a little bit. Well, to me, Alan Hearns now, the gap closes between those two because we lose a decent chunk of what A-Rob was doing in those second halves. So, again, guy that intrigues me. I think if he can just kind of even keep doing what he did last year, I think he's a value at where he's at right now. So yeah, tons of guys. It's going to be interesting. I'm even interested as we mock this summer to try and figure out if there's some patterns, when to start taking these guys, things like that. Because I think a lot of people are going to get on the same boat. We're all looking at this list, and I'm sure we can all say, "Oh, I like him, and him, and him. Yeah. Wow, he's wide receiver 30." But what happens when 6 people in your draft think the same thing? 8 people think the same thing. So,
as we always say,
one of those things. They're always a value until everybody thinks they're a value, and then it's not a value anymore. So, and we'll get into it. We were kind of talking about this before. I was mentioning to someone else. We're going to start seeing players really start to move this month because experts are starting to talk up certain players that they like, and a lot of mock drafts are starting. So the mock draft data is really going to start to fluctuate here when, Matt Harmon talks about Tyler Lockett. All of a sudden everybody's taking Tyler Lockett a whole tier higher. Well, okay, his price is going to change, his ranking is going to change. All these things are going to cause movement. So, I mean, it all looks good now. Maybe a few injuries happen, but it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out for sure.
And I think that's where, you guys doing so much mocking and getting that data really makes the website valuable too to people who are heavy into auctions. We came up with this idea of the value indicator last year, which I think, are you still there?
Sorry.
All right. That's all right. I lost your hum, which actually sounded better, but I couldn't hear the fan on your computer. I thought you were gone. But I was just talking about value indicator, like this idea of taking the average auction values, and I mean, they're skewed across the board. I was talking with Slim earlier in the week about, you know, these auction values that you see out on, I don't know, Fantasy Pros or whatever the case may be. They just never seem realistic to me in our auctions anyways, right? The handful of auctions that we're doing either online or live, these auction values that everybody else comes up with just don't make any sense. Like, you know, you might see well, let's see if I can find one for Poops, but as I locked up here, but you look at some of them, they don't seem real. And so the guys are out there doing live mocks and actually putting their average auction value in things that they're seeing, right? So that's our AAV. And then we've done this PRV, which is a positional ranking values. So what we do is we take a look at all of the auction values, all the average auction values, and then we just sort them from A to Z. Then you can actually see, like, let's take a look at somebody like LaShawn McCoy. Right now, we have his RB11. His average auction value is $27, but the 11th highest average auction value is actually $36. So according to this, based on our ranks and the average auction value and the positional ranks, he's a value. Like, you can save $9 on him, is basically what the VI says. And I think that's a pretty valuable stat to be able to look at really quick, Slim?
I loved it last year. I really did. Because, yeah, it to me told me right away, okay, who are guys that are being undervalued by the general public? And that doesn't mean in your draft they will go that way, but at least it gave me some names to say, all right, who typically goes for a deal? Do I like that player? Can I look at it? Now I have to do maybe a little, to use this thing from Sigmund Bloom, a little thought exercise. Why is this happening? So why is LaShawn McCoy going for $9 less than what he should be going for? Well, people may be unsure of his legal issues. He's had injury histories in the past. He's getting older. Great. Well, in redraft, these are all things that can work in my favor if I believe he is going to be an RB1, which I do. I have him as my RB11 right now. So, yeah, that's a guy that I might want to target, especially at that price. Maybe he's my RB2, and I've got two guys that I think are going to finish as RB1s now as my starting running backs.
Right.
So, yeah, I liked it just for that. Again, just so that I could see really quick some of these values. And conversely, the overhyped guys, too. I mean, you know, you could take your rankings and compare them and, okay, what's not adding up here? Why is this guy overvalued in terms of me? And sometimes you see the patterns. Like, I'll look at ours right now, Danny Woodhead. He's a $4 value according to, no kidding. He's always a value. Oh, okay, that makes sense. You know, he's always undervalued. He should be undervalued. Still is. All right, maybe I want to target him. So,
well, hold on. Danny Woodhead +4, overvalued. His average auction value is 21, right? And his PRV is 17. So that would mean
I look like I'm homo.
But you're right. Typically he is. And that was the point I was trying to make, is that as we move through July here, you're really going to start to see the AAV hold out to be true and work its way into what it will actually be in your draft. And so then that'll adjust that PRV. Like right now, most guys are at 0 as a PRV. I mean, half of our 50 or 60, 70, 54 guys that are ranked, probably half of them are at 0, meaning that their positional rank and their AAV are equal. And so you're not seeing a lot of those values, but that's going to work its way out as we get through camp and we see some of these younger guys and older guys making a move.
Well, just the more mocks that get done too, like legitimate mocks where we're not drafting with a bunch of computers and things like that, where we're drafting with actual people and we can get some decent ADP Sorry, I hate that word.
Oh, that's okay.
Some decent AAV data
AAV.
where we can take the numbers and the dollar amounts that are being assigned to players in live drafts and start to really input them into the spreadsheet and see where the movement starts to occur.
So, and then the idea behind these spreadsheets that we have, like I say, right now we have 54 running backs on the list with auction values for 50 plus wide receiver. And that list is only going to grow as we have more and more guys. I mean, we're looking at average auction value. So there's a lot of guys that are going to be worth like $0 or $1 that fall out of that top 50. But when you go to the website, if you want to subscribe, you can have access to all of those sheets. You can download them. You can customize them the way you want. You can sort them by value or by positional values or those types of things. It's all there for you. And that is, really deep auction values with the VIs and actual auction values that you should be seeing in your draft. We base it on a 12-team PPR, $200, base budget, and you can really take a look at where we're seeing guys going for their dollar value and where the value is. And I think that one of the big tools in getting a subscription is going to be these auction values, and then also the ability to be able to download those things and be able to use for yourself for your own research and your own cheat sheets. Heck, last year I even threw in my own cheat sheet what I used to go walk into our live home draft. I posted that. I mean, you guys could have, everyone in our league could have downloaded it to see where I had guys ranked and how I had my tiers set up, but I threw that out there as part of the subscription. Blistr and Slim both had their tiers out there. So that's all stuff you can get if you, for $14.95, you sign up for the site. You're also going to get, specific article content listed in there as well. That is auction specific. And I mean, I don't know, every year we talk about it, Slim, but you search auction on the internet and I'm working hard to try to get us to be number one as far as Google will tell you, but it's hard for me to beat ESPN. But when you go there, they're just going to have these shoddy auction values put on there that aren't realistic and then talk to you about why auction's cool. Well, that's not helping you win your draft, right?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't help you win anything, honestly. I don't care what draft you're doing. To me, we're in the golden age of content in terms of fantasy sports, even like with social media and the internet. Why you would use something like ESPN to do a redraft, whether it's just a snake draft or auction draft or whatever, is beyond me, because there are so many smart, talented, knowledgeable people out there now that can easily put their content online or make it accessible to people on all these different platforms that you're missing out if you just think that ESPN hires the best people to work for them and in this field. So definitely get online and do some research. And I mean, if you're listening to this pod, you're off to the right start. If you're not listening to podcasts or on Twitter, to me, I really think you're doing it wrong.
Well, and I'll just use this as an example. I'm looking at the Fantasy Pros, which has the draft wizards and positional ranks and all these things, right? They have one guy right now ranked over $60 in your auction draft. Slim, do you think that only one guy will go for more than $60 in our auction?
Only one?
Only one.
In ours? Probably not, but I don't know how. Let's see.
Okay, how about there's only two guys over $55?
Two for over 55?
Two for over 55.
I don't believe
And
that.
let's say there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys over $50.
Yeah, that's.
You see, and this is where it starts to skew, right? Like it says here, you're going to get Des Bryant for under 40, Right now, we have our average auction value at 54. You're going to get Allen Robinson for $32 this year.
Yeah,
$32.
Not realistic.
32.
Not realistic.
So we have T.Y. Hilton at 33 and Jeremy Maclin at 31.
Wow.
Or you could, if I can get out, I'll get Allen Robinson to 32 all day. And he's also the same level as Brandon Marshall or Sammy Watkins at 20, is ranked at the same value as Allen Robinson.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that if someone really likes Robinson. I mean, that's kind of draft specific, but I just don't see the drop off occurring in prices. You're not going to go from 60 down to 50 to 40 in 3 or 4 players. It's just typically doesn't happen that way. Unless you have a really tight league and there's 2 maniacs in it that just are going to go and spend $60 on 4 players, and then everybody else just is cheap as shit.
Right. I'm just trying to see something else that I can point out. But anyways, like there's just a couple of examples, right? So you're going to Fantasy Pro, it's supposed to be the expert composite rankings. And really, I mean, some of those values are just so skewed that you wonder sometimes where they just arbitrarily pull these out of.
Well, I think a lot of it comes from computer programs and things, which
makes me wonder, right? So a lot of them you can just go on and you can customize your league settings, and that's going to change your auction values. And then that just tells me that they're creating auction values based on player rankings and scoring systems, not actual data, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I always look back I relate it back to buying cars. I mean, if I want to buy a car, I want to know what it's going for. If I want to sell a used car, I'm not going to put a price on it just on a whim. I'm going to go and I'm going to look, hey, what do other cars go for that are like this one? Okay, well, that's the asking price, and that's what I'm going to try and get for it. I mean, that's why we tier players and things like that. I mean,
right.
Similar players should go for similar prices and just not arbitrarily made up. The public demand drives or sets these prices, and that's at least what we try and do our very best to accurately portray what this public demand is for all these players to the best that we can. So at least it gives you an accurate ballpark walking into your draft. And it's all going to be draft specific. That's
for sure
the case all the time, but it's going to give you at least a ballpark to know, do I want to proceed and go higher, or am I getting a good price? Does this seem like it's a really good deal? Then, that's all we're doing.
Which is why we always tell you got to create your own rankings. You got to do your own stuff. And that's why being able to download this content for yourself and just make your own adjustments as needed, rather than having to create your own or do any of that stuff, I see as a huge value too. I mean, you can buy a magazine for $10 that, as we always say, was written in May and published in June and released in July, that then you have to create all your own content out of anyways. Or you can spend $15, get, all this auction specific stuff, way more than anyone else. But the rest of the internet, from what I've seen, combined into one site that then you can download and then create your own content and your own information sets from what we've created for you. Anyways, I just I buy a magazine to sit in at the cabin while I'm leafing through it, sitting on the deck, and I always kick myself going like, why did I just give someone $10 for this information? That
2 extra podcasts, for Christ's sake.
Pardon me?
You should be telling.
What's that?
I said what you should be telling yourself is, why didn't I just listen to a couple extra podcasts?
That's right.
Sake?
The one thing I do like about having something on paper when I'm up there, and this year I'm going to do a better job of taking more relevant information from the internet to leaf through and print out and bring up, is that, if I sit down for 5 minutes, I can scour really quick, right? And if I sit down for 15 minutes, and I can still be social and talk and whatever, but I'm really doing fantasy research. Whereas I'm listening to a pod, I got to cut a lot of grass, and trust me, I cut a lot of grass up there, a lot.
The podcast would be the best for grass cutting.
And I think wives should get you into that, though, right? Wives should get you into that, I think. Wives should get you listening to podcasts so that you will cut the grass more and do more landscaping and pile more wood. Or
it's a win-win.
Yeah.
And if that leads to you getting more sex or something like that because you worked so hard during the day, great. Now it's just like, look, life couldn't get any better. Really, all they know is that you just were happy to do it because you got to listen to football in quiet, away from your family. It's perfect.
It really is.
I don't mind sweating if I'm going to listen to something that I enjoy listening to.
It's true. It's true. Hey, we're at 51 minutes. Anything else you want to add?
I don't know. I was going to say, I don't know. We could save. I mean, let's face it, we could talk about this forever. I don't know. We didn't really touch too much on running backs, but something else we can do next episode maybe.
For sure. And as we get into August, we typically have positional specific content too, right? Like a running back special, a wide receiver special. We'll do some live mocks in August too.
Couple things I was going to mention is one, for guys that are out there starting to mock, things like that, you want to set up a mock, whatever, you want to join one. On Twitter, follow at FF Auction Advice. It's kind of a community we've tried to set up as kind of one of the only auction-specific sites out there. Very similar to what Dynasty's done with their, Dynasty trade things. It's just a means of people that like to auction draft to be able to bounce ideas off of each other, discuss things. Maybe you don't even follow each other. One retweet can maybe get you your question out to a whole bunch of very smart people. Like, believe us, we're not the only people online that do auctions, and there's people that are much more knowledgeable than us that might not have the time to do what we do, right. But that we communicate with or something through Twitter. So follow, ask questions, set up mocks, things like that. The more information that exchanges hands, the better it is for all your soccer league, or for you guys, and the worse it is for your soccer league mates that don't do this stuff. So yeah, get out there, follow that, and also send questions for the pod. If there's guys you want us to talk about, why we have them priced where they are, or what we expect from them in this upcoming season, values, things like that, feel free to fire away. We love questions. We'll do our best to answer every single one of them. We'll try and answer as many as we can on the air. But yeah, keep them coming, and we love the banter. So don't be scared to hit us up.
That's good stuff. And I mean, if it's a DM on Twitter, it could be an email at I always forget, footballauctioneer@gmail. Is that what it is? Yeah, footballauctioneer@gmail.com. You can. We had one today. A guy leaving a lengthy one on Facebook too. It could be a comment right on Facebook page or a DM through Facebook as well. So there's lots of ways to get a hold of us. We do appreciate everybody that left reviews on iTunes and on Stitcher. That's a great way to support the podcast. If you're not interested in doing a subscription to the website, subscribe to the podcast and leave a ranking. It helps to support us and move us up and spread the auction love out there. And I guess before we go, we could probably announce the winner of the Scott Fish Bowl contest, even though he knows and Scott Fish knows and all that stuff is out there. But
I just think that.
So we could probably do that. Now he'll be playing in my division, and I'm just going to make sure I pull it up here so that I can get what his draft position will even be.
Didn't you have our fan in your division last year?
Yeah, I did, and they tend to the last couple times they've put him in my division too. So Derek Myers and myself both got out of our division, and I think we both won in the first round last year, and then he continued on. Obviously, and won it all. And if you want to listen to more about the Scott Fish Bowl and you want to check out his article, you can go on to the website. We've posted his article there. We talked a couple weeks ago, I guess it was 3 weeks ago, maybe, Slim.
Yeah, actually, that sucks because we didn't get to pod last week. I was thinking that.
That's right.
Yeah, we got him to write an article on just. Actually, he wanted to do it kind of, and he wrote an awesome piece on kind of his thought process going into the fishbowl with as a fan, as somebody that might not do snake drafts all the time and things like that, but just as a fantasy football fan going in and what his strategies were and things of that nature and kind of how it all played out. And it turned out awesome. So we posted it on the site, sent it over. I think, didn't you send it over to Scott or something like that?
Yeah, I did. And, yeah, so I'm not sure what or where he hasn't let me know where that's going to be yet, but that's been to him. So like our auction fan won against 360 other analysts and fans. And so this year, 480 teams, 360 analysts and 120 fans. This year's Scott Fishbowl contest winner is Chad Kissinger. Now, what I did was I went through all of the comments. I numbered them, 1 through whatever. I went to randomnumbergenerator.net, I believe it was, typed in how many entries we had. I pressed generate number, and then I just counted down, and it turned out that Chad was the winner. So that's what we did. I was actually going to screencast it so people didn't think we were cheating, and I probably should have, because once the result came out, it was coincidental, but it doesn't feel coincidental. We don't know Chad from anything. On his iTunes, and you can see it on his iTunes review, he mentions that Derek Myers, who won the Scott Fishbowl last year, actually plays in his home league and won his home league and played against Chad in the championship. I think Chad was the 1 seed, Slim, heading into it, and I think that Derek limped in, and then I think, how did he refer to it? He high-towered him to a championship, I think is how he said it. I thought that was a good term. He high-towered him, because last year I think a lot of guys got high-towered.
Wrestling.
So anyway, so Chad Kissinger is going to be drafting out of the 108 slot, and you can follow all this on My Fantasy League. It's open to the public, as I think pretty much everything on My Fantasy League is. We are playing in the Funny Women Conference, and we are in the Mila, I should know how to say her name because she's hot. Yeah, Mila Kunitz division. I'm drafting at a 105. He's drafting 108. We have the FF Ghost in there. We've got I don't know what we got. That we got guys from Dynasty Football League. We got football guys in there. So we've got a few analysts, a few fans playing in what was. I guess the conference that the winner came out of, because I was in it, and so was our fan. So anyways, congratulations to Chad. We look forward to seeing how he's going to draft. And Chad, I'm pretty sure you're going to be listening now. Make sure you're letting us know some of your thought process and some of the things that are going on while you're doing your draft, and we'll keep in touch with Chad throughout the fantasy football season to see how he did or how he's doing in the Scott Fishbowl.
Better than us.
Yeah, that's all right. That's okay. Hey, if the fans using us to get an advantage, then no.
I'm winning this year. I don't care.
You don't care who it is?
I'm calling it right now. I'm winning the whole thing.
You heard it here live. I'm
serious.
I'm tweeting that right now, actually. I'm going to go on my Twitter account right now and at Slim for MVP. Just called it. He's winning the. There it is live. SFB 480 this year, live on the podcast. Hashtag called it. There it is. Now
RB0, QB0.
Now you do understand, Slim, that you're going to have social pressure, which is a good thing.
No, I don't feel pressure.
I know. All right, Slim, we're at 1 hour.
Game. Talking about a game. Wish we could do Allen Iverson plays. Practice. Talking about practice.
I just looking at the time, Slim. We're at 1:01 hour 1. We said we're getting out of here, so let's get out of here.
We blew it.
Well, we're pretty good.
4th of July. Happy Canada Day.
Yeah, says the flag behind Slim.
Saved it. This was for my son's
Follow
birthday.
us at Fantasy Auction, Fantasy Football Auctioneer on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast. Check out the website, thefantasyfootballauction.com. Slim, I hope to see you out on the links on Thursday.
I won't be there this Thursday, buddy.
Oh, well, then I won't see you there. And
Next Thursday.
I'm a little disappointed we didn't get to see Blistr tonight.
Nah.
I thought he might pop on from the strip. I'm just saying.
Well, if he jumped on from like Score or something like that, that'd be pretty sick.
Him and Ronnie the limo driver. Oh! Anyways, that's a Stern reference for those of you who don't know who Ronnie the limo driver is. But let's go on from this Slim for MVP to Slim Whitman. We will see you when it's springtime in the Rockies.